surprisingly don't have any snow in Utah, but the next best thing is to visit a factory where snow machines are being made. Snow machines that can power your house or off-grid cabin just like a Tesla Powerwall. This video is not sponsored. I do own 2 of these electric Taiga snowmobiles, and we drove them all over the mountains last year. With the giant tank tracks on the back, they can get into some of the most remote locations on the planet, places where historically batteries have never gone before, and it's super cool to see how they are made. The substructure of the snow machine is laser cut out of flat aluminum sheet that can then get bolted and riveted into place. Aluminum is in that sweet spot of being inexpensive, lightweight, and non-corrosive, and we'll find a lot of it here in the snow machine body. Riveting different laser cut and bent pieces together on top of each other makes the side step strong enough to stand on, with the help of a long strip of extruded aluminum on the exterior edge. Extrusions are made when melted aluminum is pushed through a certain shape, and the metal retains that extruded shape afterwards, like one of those Play-Doh toys. Casting, though, like what Taiga uses for the motor mounts, is when molten metal is poured into a cavity. The cavity resembles the final shape you need, and when the metal cools down, you get the part you want. It's cool to see all these different kinds of metal fabrication processes coming together at the same time to bring the snow machine to life. Once the bare aluminum frames are assembled, they get strapped up and stacked up and taken off to powder coating, in this case black, but they could do some other colors, I imagine. And then they come back to this factory where they get the tracks added. While we wait for the frames to be coated, the skid assembly, the shock-absorbing support system that goes inside the rotating track, can be assembled. This part has a few idler wheels and some long sliders. I thought it was interesting that the sliders have a special material called a Vespel insert, which helps decrease friction as the rubber track rotates. Less friction means less battery consumed, less wear and tear on moving parts, meaning that the sliders and the track itself will both last longer. These utility snow machines top out at about 60 miles an hour, so there's a lot of rotating going on. With the skid assembly complete, we can take the frames that are back from being powder-coated black and install the silver heat exchanger to the bottom of the chassis inside the tunnel. I'll explain more about the heat exchanger in a second, but first let's bring over the tracks. These rubber tracks can weigh about 50 pounds each, and thanks to their size, they're kind of extremely awkward to work with, especially since the embedded spikes have carbide tips, which are about a level 9 on the Mohs scale of hardness. Wouldn't want to get run over with one of these. The spikes are there to grip the ice, and inadvertently shred any concrete that it rolls across. The Nomad can also tow more than 1,100 pounds on snow, so the extra traction is pretty useful. One thing I learned about snow machines is that the water from snow melting helps lubricate the track as it rolls around on the sliders, which is why people often install ice scratchers on the side of their snow machines to help kick up snow onto the track. This keeps things cool on the warmer, drier days. Snow is especially useful since the heat exchanger above the track tunnel is what's acting as the radiator. It's what keeps the electric motors and battery cool, and uses the same melting snow that the track is flipping around to remove the heat. Snow whips up onto the metal heat exchanger, evaporates, and keeps the internal coolant cool inside of the snowmobile. You'll see the coolant in a second. With the tank track installed, the VIN number can then get etched with a dot pen stylus, It has a tiny carbide tip stylus that hammers the serial number into the softer aluminum. With the frame and track ready, it's time to add the powertrain and the 400-volt battery pack, all of which Taiga designs and manufactures in-house, using some pretty cool robot arms. What's interesting about the battery pack is that these same modules are what's used for both Taiga's watercraft as well as Taiga's snowmobile. The factory can keep running year-round while producing seasonal vehicles, building snow machines in the winter and watercraft in the summer. The batteries you see here are also bi-directional, meaning that when the vehicles aren't adventuring around outdoors, they can be plugged in and provide about 23 kilowatt hours worth of battery backup power to your house, about the same capacity as 2 Tesla Powerwalls. Regular snowmobiles sure can't do that, and you also can't go ride a Tesla Powerwall. Well, at least not in public anyway. so Taiga is the best of both worlds. With the cooling plate stuck between each of the pouch-style battery cells, the whole pack gets squished together in a module. Taiga has the capacity to build one of these battery modules every 6 minutes. The tabs on the pouch cells of the battery are ultrasonically welded together. The shape of the 4 Snow Machine battery modules are oriented in different locations than the 4 modules we saw on the watercraft, but the plumbing for the cooling system works in the same way. Each of the cooling plates get piped together, and then the orange high-voltage bus bars get added to the top. And just like on the watercrafts they build during the summer, the batteries are then sealed up in their own watertight enclosure. Back at the Snow Machine body, we can drop in the 120 horsepower electric motor into the front of the chassis. Even though it's a rather small-looking unit, it packs just as much of a punch as other gas-powered utility sleds, hitting 0 to 60 miles an hour in about 3 seconds. And of course, being electric, it has virtually no maintenance. The motor is bolted directly to the chassis wall, meaning there isn't any vibrations or motor mounts to deal with either. The same cooling loop that cools down the motor and batteries can also be used to warm up the batteries, allowing the Nomad to be used in temperatures as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Taiga even has a few of their machines helping out research stations in Antarctica, which is wild. The belt drive going from the motor to the track that we installed earlier basically lasts for a lifetime, making vehicle maintenance virtually non-existent. With the motor, belt, and track installed, it's time to take our finished battery pack and plop it on top of the frame. The battery gives the Nomad about 60 miles of range, and this also eventually becomes where the driver sits. With the battery pack in place, our Nomad weighs about 700 pounds, which puts it in about the same ballpark as a gasoline-powered utility snowmobile with a full tank. The only liquid going into this Nomad, though, is the coolant. This can be warmed and cooled to keep the battery in the most ideal operating temperatures. The display and computer console get added next. Right above the charging port, the DC fast charging port allows the battery to charge up to 80% in about 40 minutes. But I imagine most people will plug in at home, so the Snow Machine can act as a battery backup for your whole house when you're not riding it. Finally, the rest of the fairings and the exterior body panels are clipped into place. Before the Nomad gets revved up through the final inspection process.
After checking all the electronics and making sure the track spins, we're here for the final inspection underneath this light curtain and ready for final shipment as well. It does not have skis on the front because Taiga's realized that it's easier to ship when everything is compacted, so it's missing the front suspension and the skis. And that's how it arrives to the dealerships.
I'm a big fan of where Taiga is headed. Being able to go outdoors in the most remote of places quietly is a pretty big deal, and I'm glad Taiga has figured out a way to make it happen.
And there you have it, a fully built, complete electric Taiga snowmobile. As a thank you for making it to the end of the video, Taiga has given us a $500 discount code. I will leave a link for that down in the description. And thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.